just kind of ran up mid, then ran back, then ran back up mid. So they like to, you know, confuse a little bit. We are, of course, getting into it here. And clearly some interesting ideas in terms of the setup with the util.
I like that it's a slower approach as well. Just getting a feel for the map as we see it is MIBR who's on the T side, and it's not going to be QSE who we'd kind of been expecting the hard rush executes on. Now, they're not taking super aggressive control of ramp. They're sort of allowing a potential push to come in, but they're positioning themselves in a way that they'll know exactly when it's happening. And well, there you go. Now she knows it's happening.
Yeah, it moves incredibly fast here. Of course, Fly with the entry to open up. Lil Z going to find the second as well. B bomb site secure. Now we talked about these retakes. Gonna have to try and get it going, but unfortunately here for QSE, not really working out. In comes the lurk from middle. And I think that might just be all she wrote for that one. It will indeed. So flawless pistol round to kick off from MIBR. That's always nice.
I think what makes that one so tough is when you're on that very first pistol round and you're on the T side, you can kind of 5-stack rush onto a site. But when you're on the CT side, you can't really gamble stack on the first round. You do somewhat need to spread yourself out a little bit. And so when that aggressive push comes through and overruns the site, you, as the CTs, you're already at a massive disadvantage. And that's immediately what happens there. They take down the one player holding control. They take control of the site. And at that point, they have a numbers advantage and they have control of the site. They're basically home free.
Well, the Eagles out, of course, here for the CT side. 5-7 dotted in. No one ecoing out for that AWP. Usually Babs that moves towards it, so see what the move is. These force buy rounds, you know, incredibly strong if you can pull it off. MIBR, not really giving them anything. I think for me, this is the perfect way to open up at the very least. Just wind the clock down a little bit. Only takes you about 20 seconds to get into the bomb site. No need, especially at ramp, to give an early Deagle headshot away. We'll see here, though. Anorex trying to stick around on the B stairs. Nothing coming. So setting up for a B execute by the looks of things on that T side. He says. And then rotating back around. This is maybe a read, to be fair, from QSE. As I said, they like to mess around, play the info game, show attention in one area, move across to another. So really, okay, well-read play. What's gone on through the smoke here? T-kill coming in from the backside. I think, unfortunately, although Lei found a very nice triple with the 5-7, I don't think it's quite going to be enough. Caught reloading in the end, and she will go down. MIBR, though, it's pretty costly.
Yeah, seriously, I think that just being able to make it that expensive is a bit of a win. Not ideal still, because it's still... being on the CT side, it takes a little bit longer to build up that economy. You don't have the benefit of something like a bomb plant, for example. So it's going to take you a little bit longer, but at least you've put a little bit of a dent. Not enough to make it super painful, because, of course, MIBR is still coming into with his rifles and the one Galil there, but, all right. It's a bit of an aggressive rush, and the round's over. Cool. Yeah. Pretty standard anti-eco, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes you just gotta, especially early on in the game, you kind of just gotta send the feelers out there, see how they do against the USPs. You never know. Seems they do quite well. So, all good. Clean 3-0 on the board here. Of course, first rifle round coming in. This is where it really starts to open up a little bit. QSE, what have they got? Oh my goodness, so very blind here. The A1S able to find one, quickly traded back. Gonna work out for the T side. Seen a little bit of a creep in coming through towards the sandbags. Not quite sticking around. What's happened with the molly, though? Fly goes 100-0. That's a little awkward, and now 4-3 in favor of that CT side.
You know what? I think QSE are not complaining. They will absolutely take that. I think that, you know, MIBR, they start posturing over towards ramp, and maybe they start to think, okay, we're going to pull back. We're going to go to the B site instead. And then somehow they just like lose a player to a molly. And now they in a bit of a rough and a bit of a tight spot. Both sites are pretty heavily defended as well. So to try and crack their way in, they likely have to move together. Wondering if there's not a potential for distraction to try to just give some space here to push in onto the site.
Uzi in a pretty good spot. Over at Ivy. Does have the bomb. Leading the charge. Got to be careful with that, but not going to get stopped. It's passive positions right now from QSE. Perfect way to use your man advantage. And we'll see indeed whether they can keep things all together. A nice flash, but Kizia going to be ready for it. Babs making a play on her own. Pushes through. Looking relatively good here. Just Kizia ready and waiting, but overwhelmed. Katsi with a pretty big 2K towards the end to keep it together there. That's a pretty good retake. And I did say their post plants, their retakes, kind of dodgy in the open qualifier. So that's really well put together, actually.
Yeah, I think that utilization of smokes there was a really big one. So we actually see MIBR use or take advantage of one of those smokes just to be able to get that bomb down. But then they pull back and they kind of pull themselves all the way into ramp and they kind of corral themselves a little bit. And it's pretty simple for QSE to take advantage of that. You know, you have a little bit of a high ground advantage on that one. You're able to peek out together, the buddy system, so to speak. And so it's a fairly easy retake. But it doesn't just come down to where your positioning was, right? You have to make sure that your timing is perfect. And so in that regard, QSE play that very, very well. They make sure that they're not being too rushed about how they peek out for those final couple of kills. They know they've got a little bit of time still, so they don't want to be overly aggressive and unnecessarily wild about it. And of course, they know that they're playing against, you know, MIBR, who we've already said is a phenomenal team. So I like that they're taking a slower style. You'd mentioned how they like to be super aggressive on their T side, but on the CT side, they're actually playing very, very patiently, and it seems to be working out very well.
This is the time, as we kind of touched on, you know, in a game like this, where you do have to take a little bit of a step back and I think amp it up a bit, right? And say, okay, let's up the discipline. We probably know where the veto is going to go. We're pretty confident on the maps that they like to go for as well, especially in this Vertigo. So let's just make sure that we're on that extra level, because now is the time that we can take advantage of a vulnerable MIBR, where maybe a week ago, as we were looking at things, you may have felt there's a degree of realism. You know, you maybe have to look at it and be like, right, we're going to give it our best shot, but no hard feelings if it doesn't go our way, or, you know, if it comes close, it'd be kind of annoying or whatever. We're learning process from a team that has a bit more experience in it. But as it is this evening, very winnable. To be honest, right? So you've got to make that kind of shift. We do have a little bit of a tech pause there, of course. We like watching the Counter-Strike. We're not just pausing so that we can, you know, talk endlessly. I think a player dropped out on that CT side. So back into things here. Not too much of a wait to get going.
Oh, we've got a AWP on the field as well, which immediately gets results through a smoke, no less. Well played. That's going to give the numbers advantage over to MIBR, and QSE going to have to rethink this now, because now they're aware that that's on the field and have to be very careful about how they position themselves.
Yeah, I think as well, Babs getting taken down with the AWP in hand. Maybe a light tag onto Arkinia here, it looks like. So kind of unfortunate. It's a tough one to win on the CT side. Anna X, though, going to take an aggressive peek at the top of the stairs. So a nice little trade back. And now the HP becomes a factor. See what they've got planned here on the MIBR side of things. A little bit of mid control coming in, but again, it's not really being hard watched. Annex with a great reposition here as well. Meanwhile, over on the A side of things, play in a more aggressive position, I suppose, also able to find a frag. Oh, and Kizza sees a smoke come in, fancies her chances, but will not work out. That's going to be the bomb as well. So not looking too good. 4 on 2 becomes very vulnerable, very doable for QSE. And Leia, especially with this 3K, you know, finding those easy 1v1s, not missing a mark. And little Z going to be a bit sad. Found that opener. What's happened here?
A bit of a chaotic round, I think, from MIBR. And honestly, a little less clean, a little less put together, I suppose, than what I would have expected. And again, we just have to kind of remind ourselves that they're working with a new IGL and they've had to bring in two new players on top of that. So they're probably still trying to kind of find their feet to a certain extent, and they are going to be able to at least hold on to the AWP, but that was a round that looked very messy. They start off with a beautiful opening kill, and they kind of stall out a little bit. And then we start seeing these weird one-for-one trades going back and forth at different places on the map. It didn't feel like they were working in tandem. It kind of felt like they were not really sure of what everyone else was doing. So they need to just kind of tighten that up a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. I think certainly, again, though, early on in the game, those types of rounds are less egregious, right? Because you never know what might pull off, what holes you might find, or maybe QSE, they're rotating really quickly. Is that the kind of long-term information that they're working towards here? There's definitely some question marks, but you can perhaps see where it's coming from, in a sense. So maybe don't make a habit of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all good in the early stages, I suppose.
Ramp's been given up for free here. I mean, there's so much space for MIBR to push on, and they're going to use quite a bit of their utility early on, and that's going to like give over so much information as well. I mean, these retakes have been so good from QSE, so you've got to think there's a plan behind this, somewhat maybe making MIBR a little paranoid.
Yeah, and I mean, I take a look at the minimap. We're very, very rigid here. Not really any defense on the A-bomb site. Very passive position with 2 in towards middle, 2 in towards B. And yes, there is, like you say, decent retakes and whatnot, but I think you want to be dishing out a bit of damage here.
Yeah.
The odd bullet, the odd nade to go through, and maybe a kill off the back of that. But in reality, you've given quite a lot of space, and there is such a thing as too much respect. And now, not only do you need to retake where the bomb's at, you need to retake all this space in towards headshot. And as you can see, Arkinia is set up and ready to go. Unfortunately, caught blind in the end, but a big double setting up another as well. In comes Little Z through the smoke, mind you, on this AWP, and eventually overwhelming the final player. So, yeah, MIBR, it does look very good. It does look flashy, but you have to question the setup from the CT side.
That was very odd. I mean, I know that you... So you know you're not coming on a full anti-eco, right? But you know that their economy isn't the best. So 1 or 2 players might not be fully kitted out to the absolute best potential that they could have. But yes, you know they have the AWP, but to give that much space over... I mean, 5v5 retakes, as good as your retakes are, 5v5 is never a good position to be in. You really want to be whittling down as much as possible. Now we're seeing the complete opposite. Now we're seeing full-on aggression, but of course it is because, well, they don't really have a lot here. So get the round over with, come back with rifles, hopefully.
Yeah, not a bad idea through the smoke, I think, and it's kind of unfortunate. The flash is relatively well hidden apart from that angle that was being held, that was being sat in. In that case, it just is quite obvious. Turn away, turn back in. So, you know, unlucky, but that's fine. Like you say, in a round like this, not expecting too much out of the CT side. I always like to say, rounds like these, any damage is good damage, right? Because you are just looking to maybe take a gun away, maybe chuck it off the map, maybe save it into the next round, whatever you want to do with it. And there you are. Nice 2 for 1 on the trade. See what the move is into this A-bomb side, though. Looking pretty good. Cassie just going to be sat behind the smoke, spamming away with the deagle. They know where she's at. And give that respect. You should be all good. Only losing the 1 player here against a bit of a half-buy, especially one that's so neatly packed together, I think is a fair result.
Would have been nice if she'd been able to pick up one of those rifles, but yeah, holding on to... Oh, she's gonna go try and get some exit frags here. Would have been nice if she'd be able to just get the 1, but unfortunately, not gonna happen. So they come into this round, they'll be able to buy up once again, and while they've had some decent rounds, I applaud dynamicism, I applaud creativity, but it still has to have purpose. And I feel like QSE are being creative and dynamic for the sake of being creative and dynamic. And their positioning and their rotations haven't necessarily felt like they have purpose. And that's a really important thing to get right here. Especially now, you know, want to try and get a few more points on the board as MIBR are looking so stacked financially. And there you go, that's going to be a nice early opener.
So some of the difficulty, I think, for me, that we may see some of the teams running into is the proverbial brick wall and how to get around it or through it or whatever, right? Because the early rounds from QSE, the early rifle rounds to get the 2 on the board look pretty good. But now that MIBR have come back in, we had a timeout in there that, lets emotions settle a little bit, and probably some slight chatter about what you want to do in the online world. It's harder to police, right? So I think that MIBR have found the method, found the way in these past few rounds, and QSE are struggling to readapt, as it were. So we'll see. There's still obviously time here. And I think that although meta-wise that CT side is pretty deadly, like I talked about on Vertigo, T side can really start taking off. So that could become a problem. That could also be something that QSE abuse into their own second half. But respect the save here. I think they should be all good to get away. Fly's looking around for a little bit of something, but unfortunately fluffs the spray down ever so slightly. So all these guns, all these A1Ss should be into the next round. Ooh, okay.
Oh, no. Don't
an aggressive peak. An aggressive peak, for sure.
Oh, and it seemed like there might just be one more towards the end there. Thankfully, the round ends at just the right time. A little unfortunate. Would have liked to have come through with the 3 guns in that one and not just the 2. So a little less firepower than they would have wanted. Far less utility than what they're truly happy with. We spoke about getting that buffer in. We spoke about how the CT side is so strong. And I suppose this is, MIBR just making sure that they have a good T side so that they don't have to worry too much about that CT side. But for QSE, I mean, to start getting more rounds here is becoming imperative as we slowly inch our way closer towards the half. And I also feel like Littlers has been such a demon with this op, and playing that dynamic op as well. It's really kept QSE guessing.
It's still frustrating. That one rifle, that one more rifle, I think they would have bought into this round, to be honest. So, a missed shot. Oh, nearly gives the opportunity for Late to kind of turn the round upside down, but not going to be there. Just the 1 kill, which, you've done your job, and in isolation is cool, but the chance of the round 4v3. I still think they're a little apprehensive. They don't quite know what the buy approach is from QSE. But all the same, we know with all our information that things look pretty good here. Catty, back of the site. Nasty spot. Nasty headshot onto the first. Great flash over the top. Should be finished, and indeed is. So I think, once again... Oh, I don't know. I was going to say maybe we look for a save here with an AK retreat by AnaRex, but they are certainly thinking about this one. One going down. I mean, it all depends on this flank, right? AnaRex is here pretty quickly. Going to be watchful, though, and yeah, dealt with quickly. So, unfortunate. It's a Hail Mary play. You're buying into the next round anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. But yeah, MIBR now starting to grow the gap pretty substantially. I think this next rifle round is mega important for the first half.
This will probably dictate a lot of the rest of the map, certainly the rest of the half, because when you keep losing these rounds, yes, you get that loss streak bonus, but when you buy, you kind of tank it a little bit. So it's a rough spot to be in, no doubt. And hopefully they'll be able to bring it around, because you had kind of mentioned that they'd been looking a lot better when they did have those rifles, but they've been really struggling to find position. And I think that's the most important aspect to look at here. Take a look at how MIBR are approaching these sites, and then try to respond. I suppose that sounds like a very forehead comment to make, but it is essentially what needs to happen. So now MIBR again taking a fairly slow approach. I mean, they haven't been overly aggressive. They've tended to just kind of wait for QSE to walk into their crosshairs, and I kind of want to see QSE have to force them through, because eventually, MIBR have to push through smokes, utility, whatever the case may be, because they have to plant the bomb. Time is a factor. So if QSE can play this a little bit more passively and allow MIBR to walk into them, then that might afford them a few more opportunities.
Oh, key fight coming up. Nice flash to allow the cross to come in. Can't quite find the angle. But set up. Arkinia trying to creep, and she gets punished. because you're tagged down very low as well, of course. So looking quite good here for QSE, and I think that this is the healthy balance that we were kind of after in terms of the setup. Not too aggressive, not too passive either, not swinging completely the other way. So really solid stuff, finding an opener, and now sitting on that, right? Quite a late smoke to the top of the stairs here. Molly to disrupt what's going on down there. So pretty solid stuff, and I like the idea of rotating a couple solidly in towards B as well. This is really well put together for what's coming. Oh, looking good. Lay hidden away at the back of the site towards back 90. There is the peak, of course. Waiting for it. Patience pays off, and now Little Z, the only one left. Nice couple of frags here, a good clean flick, but getting behind that generator with nothing but an AWP is certainly no mean feat. Fake out on the bomb, not a lot of time, okay? So we've got one set up to maybe keep the pressure on, one set up to just run away. Bomb plant comes in, gives another chance across. No way! No! Oh my God! What? Little Z with the ace, the 1v5. I don't believe it. I do not believe it. I mean, it looked, especially in the 1v2 there, it looked like they were, you know, put together, ready to approach from both sides. Split-second differences to get that AWP recocked, but goodness me. What a clutch.
I'm blown away. By rights, she should not have been able to come away with that. And again, you know, we talk about how important the timing is, and I think that is specifically one of those moments where QSE, they had the numbers advantage. They had everything available to them, but they kind of peek out one by one. And you're kind of thinking, okay, well, an AWP in a close range battle, what are the chances that she's going to be able to hit those shots? But to take that chance is a little bit of a ballsy play, I'll be honest, and it doesn't pay off. When you know that there's an AWP on site, when you know that it's a good AWPer as well, you can't afford to be going 1-for-1. You got to swing together, bait out a shot, and then try and trade it out. 4 players get absolutely deleted. I just spent an entire round talking about that because it was just ridiculous.
Yeah. And look, the issue is as well, to bring it kind of crashing back down for Quem, elas is, you know, if you're already feeling a little down and out, sure, it's your opponent's map pick, if you want to put it that way, but that kind of a round is very difficult to recover from. You know, if you're miles ahead, maybe you can say, well, a little silly, let's make sure that doesn't happen again. But when you're behind, when you need that round, and when it all looks good, it's just going to throw you off completely. And, well, you can see it's starting to affect play a little bit. Anna X gets a nice flash round, can't quite finish the frag. And again, MIBR find an opener.
This is another instance of QSE being not super aggressive, but kind of pushing out a little bit, and it somewhat plays into MIBR's hands. Now, for the rest of the team, likely going to be playing a little bit more passive. We can actually see that is the stance that they're taking at the moment, so hopefully they'll be able to set up nicely. They are at a little bit of a disadvantage here, but with that, holding that with the AWP, hopefully, smoke's in the way, not getting anything through the spam.
Yeah, a little unfortunate. I think maybe could have been the chance to find a cheeky kill through the smoke. It becomes a lot harder to mount this retake when you are indeed in the deficit. I think they're kind of recognizing that, right? A little bit of spam coming through, trying to find something. But now as their smokes dissipate, it becomes very scary on the cross, right? We've got Lil Z, who looking quite good right now. 12 and 2. Oh, hoping to add. Nearly a collat coming in. Still fragging out of her mind, though, of course. And that pressure just allows the other members of MIBR here to make up space and find the gaps. Babs trying to get the escape in. Oof. Only good for the one. Yeah, it's getting rough now. It's getting rough. And I think we can see there's, you know, opportunities to come back in. Some closer rounds here or there. And then you lose big 1v5. And it is a pitfall, right? And you've got to try and pull yourself out as quickly as possible.
And with only like 3 rounds left in this half, it's starting to feel that little bit more of an impossible hurdle to overcome. There's so little cash to play with here as well. And you have to make sure that you're maximizing what you're able to get out of the little bit of cash that you're going to have available over the next 3 rounds if you want to be able to get those 3 rounds, because it's necessary. I mean, a 10-5 half is not great, but it's certainly better than a 13-2. I don't have to tell you that. So hopefully we start to see, because those more patient rounds really have worked out so much better. Made in Brazil, they have to force their way through. And QSE can, and they have used that so well to their advantage in a few of those rounds, but it's those slight missteps that push the favor back into MIBR's hands. And MIBR, where QSE sometimes kind of fumble their leads a little bit, MIBR have done so well to grab hold of it and force it into a round win. Even when they're at a slight disadvantage, they're still able to find those small cracks in QSE's defense and push through it, and again, commit or afford themselves the win of the round. And we talk about those mid-round adaptations and how so important they are, but I feel like QSE lose a player so early on that they're not really given an opportunity to get to like a mid-round stage. You know, the rounds are so short because they lose a player early on. MIBR then give themselves the advantage and then they press it. And at that point, QSE just don't have time to make the necessary adaptations.
I feel we're seeing a little bit of this discrepancy that was talked about, right? Where MIBR, I think they have already, even though we have some newer members here, a lot of trust in each other that allows the team play to kind of become elevated. And it's like, right, if I'm not finding an entry, I have some assistance behind me, I know I'm going to get traded. QSE, we have moments, we have some setups, right, that look relatively good, or Lei especially has been in a few positions to take advantage of an unchecked angle, maybe. But it feels like they don't have as much trust in one another to pull off some early aggression on this CT side at the very least, right? And go for something a bit quick. The ramp control, for example, talked about learning and sure, you know, changing things around and not getting stubborn, but we haven't really seen them go for very much since losing it out in, I'd say, like round 6, round 7, when it started to really go south and they were consistently losing early picks. Let's try and send someone through with a rifle. You did it in a half buy. Try and send someone through off the back of a flash. Try and send someone a bit closer. It doesn't necessarily have to be an AWP pick. Yeah, you can sit behind the smoke, sit in a corner behind the smoke, right? And we're not seeing, as you like to say, that dynamicism, right? And it is getting quite rigid. And I think MIBR really starting to abuse that now. And it's becoming kind of problematic for QSE.
I think there are very few things worse than telegraphed plays for a team. You know, to find yourself stuck in that rut. And honestly, I think the mental game plays a huge part in that as well. Very often you find yourself in a position like this and you're feeling pretty down and out and you're trying to think of ways to make it work. And very often, you know, players go quiet, for example. And it's so tough to bring yourself back out of that rut and start fighting back. I'm really hoping that QSE can start to find that fight again, because as I mentioned, you know, if they get the next 3 rounds, then there still is possibility for them to have a far more competitive T side. But without these next 3 rounds, I mean, maybe they string together a few rounds, but realistically, this should be an MIBR map either way. So these next ones are so pivotal, so important. And it's definitely doable. Like you said, those small things, using that utility and being able to play off of that. A flash, you know, flash the op off the angle and then maybe push through and start to play that aggressive style, but do it in a more coordinated manner. You know, we spoke about how there's creativity for the sake of creativity, and then there's creativity with a plan behind it. And simple things like flashes and smokes aren't even necessarily super creative ideas. It's you know, basically fundamentals. So start to create those openings for yourself, push out a little bit, hopefully throw MIBR off balance, because that's been another thing. MIBR have just looked so solid. There have been 1 or 2 rounds where they looked a little shaky, I'll admit, but for the most part, they've looked pretty put together.
Yeah, rough here on the buy as well. I think you've got to pull a bit more out in this round. I get that you don't have as much cash as you would like and thinking about the future and whatnot, but it's conceding to, at the very least, an 11-4, which is workable. Zonic's law, as they say. But, yeah, you don't really want to give it away easily. So... We'll see, we'll see. I mean, I think we could have had like an M4 out, a little bit of money on some of the players here. But at the same time, it's quite rough. It's quite rough. You are damned if you do, damned if you don't type deal at the moment. Really, really passive on the setup as well. So again, giving a lot of space across to MIBR when they already have a pretty hefty advantage. So I'm curious to see what we can find on the flank. 5-7 struggles find the kill, and well, now the push is in full flow, looking pretty good. 3 players remaining, 1 up close here, and a nice find once again. Lay on that 5-7. You know, she's pretty confident with it and consistently finding kills with it, but it looks relatively good here. P250 of Babs is certainly a thorn in the side, but not able to pick up a frag. Bomb will go down eventually. Maybe 1 or 2 more kills. You know, the HP bars are getting lower and lower. Missed AWP shot. Cassie looking good for 2, but unfortunately, Hera's there with the big gun, not just a 5-7.
Valiant attempt, all things considered, and they do get a lot of kills in a round where they realistically shouldn't, but at this point, you know, the whole concept of making it expensive is somewhat out the window. MIBR are so flush with cash at the moment, it's not going to make the hugest of difference. And okay, getting a couple more eliminations, that does help to a certain extent, and they are going to be able to buy up quite nicely here. We've got a counter AWP coming out as well. The question remains, do they take this hyper-aggressive stance, or do they maintain their incredibly passive defense? And while there has been quite a bit of utility being used, particularly across ramp, there hasn't been too much of a push. And again, I think they're giving a little bit too much respect to that AWP. You should respect it, but maybe not this much.
Yeah, the AWP also moving around here on the CT side in terms of who's picking it up is never the best of signs. So MIBR, they're in their heads, man. And Arkinya looking to double up for the entry, just making it look easy. There's nothing too flashy about it, you know. She's just on her own, little bit of utility, and has firmly opened up this A bomb site. Now rotation's coming in from the rest of QSE, and they, as always, finds herself in a pretty sneaky spot. MIBR slowing it down, unsure, uncertain. Don't want to take too many wild chances. Really, really want to start hammering this one home. Lay misses out on the opportunity. Does eventually drop the bomb carrier. Trade it out. Is it enough for the rest of the squad to pick this round back up? 20 seconds left to get that bomb down. Carrier, once again, very low. Nowhere near the site. Anna X going to drop the bomb again. 15 seconds into a 1v1. Hera trying to make the cross, but Catty will take her down. And QSE, it's a bit of chaos. It's a bit of madness, but they'll find a third.
That was very nearly a round missed that realistically they should have had in the bag. So thankfully they do manage to bring it together. I mean, I think specifically Lei kind of missing that the bomb is busy being planted. The fact that she wins out that 1v1 is imperative. It is the catalyst that helps push them forward. And even in that instance, they're still player down, but they still manage to bring it around. And hopefully that's the little bit of a confidence boost that they would have needed. Again, you know, the economic situation for MIBR is not the least in question, but QSE are starting to show some signs of life here again. They've managed to pick up that third round, and hopefully we can see them string together the next couple, give themselves a chance.
Oh, Catty. That was maybe a frag that you're going to need here. Yeah, it was a little awkward. Anna X going down kind of leaves things vulnerable on B. Spam over the top does manage to even things up. Again, it's kind of flustered. It's kind of crazy. QSE giving themselves a chance into it. The bomb firmly planted. We've got a full belt of utility still remaining, a kit as well in play. Flying Gazelle move from late doesn't really work out too well. And Kizio with the double headshot to clean us up. 12-3 on the first half. We'll see. QSE, it's a mountain, but can they climb it?
Must be more for me. Been here before. I'm locking the door. Hide away the key. This hopelessness is hard to swallow. Your heart of glass, empty and hollow. You're so cold, a black hole, a dying star. That's what you are. You're so cold, a black hole, a dying star. That's what you are. Out of my depth, can't catch my breath. Felt like I would drown. Been here before. I lock the door and turn the lights out. This hopelessness is hard to swallow. Your heart of glass, empty and hollow. You're so cold, a black hole, a dying star. That's what you are. You're so cold, a black hole, a dying star. That's what you are. It's what you are. So cold. It's what you are. It's what you are. So cold. It's what you are. Turn to the dark side. It's
All right, back into it then, folks. Made in Brazil. Not much that I need to add to the numbers. They are dominating right now. Moving on to that CT side. All-in-pawn pistol. Goes without saying. QSE need to show us a little more, Sam.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how they're going to run this because I can't be too crazy about it. They can't really take any huge mistakes or missteps. Oh, well, that's not great.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah,
Oh.
not looking good. I think MIBR were very ready for this one. The mid-stack on both sides of the equation. And again, kind of making it look easy as they just walk straight into that crossfire. All going to be left on lay. Bit of a pistol maestro over on the CT side of things. Oh.
Spotted.
Yep. Not quite
chicken.
sure where that came from. USP is silent, so a bit awkward for lay there in the end. But going the way that we kind of expected, right, after the initial exchange. And now it's very worrying. No bomb plan. You know, it's going to be really tough for QSE to get anything done here, I think.
Yeah, so I was waiting to see what their style was going to be, and I think you said it perfectly. MIBR expecting a fairly aggressive pistol push up through mid, and yeah, they were prepared and ready for it. And they're doing the same thing again. Look at this rush.
Yeah, I mean, saving out for the AKs here, going to give so much money across to Lil Z, though. I mean, she's already having a pretty good game. Just keep those stats a coming, 19 and 5. Which, with, you know, the amount of rounds that we've had.
Jeez. All right, so at least now they do have pistols, but... I mean, if they lose this round, that's probably it. Because that puts us on match point, and their economy is in the drink. So, yeah... Dire straits is probably the best term we could use.
Yeah, maybe putting it lightly. Up a creek without a paddle. There's usually a little bit more to that one. So if you're in the know, you kind of know what I'm getting at. Early tag as well onto Anna X. So it starts pretty poorly, but very quickly recovers back. Babs taking control of that right-hand side. And immediately, look, MIBR, they've got so many rounds, so they could do it. But the difference is there. Ramp left open. They're willing to take that fight. However, the game kind of given away. And very well read, actually, for the first frag. So this is big for QSC. We'll see what they can do with it.
Little Z buying into the AWP in the second round as well is big money investment. They were really expecting to just kind of clean up a little bit here, or at least hoping to. QSC looking pretty good here. Looking a little more coordinated than what we'd seen previously. Again, so necessary to make that happen. And I kind of want to see them take the AWP away, just to... kind of prove a point, I think. Just to kind of stick it to MIBR a little bit, but not too sure they're going to allow that to happen. This is looking like they're probably going to just try and hold on to it.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to save on Vertigo, to be honest with you. So maybe once this bomb gets kind of halfway, we could send people a hunting, but, you know, you don't want to maybe bite off a bit too much on this T side. Yeah, so they get the round. My issue with it, right? We actually noted Babs as being one of the more impressive individuals on this side, not really having much of a chance to show that on the CT end of things, but immediately into the T side, you know, she gets a rifle, 3K comes in, pretty much on her own. One of the harder things that I'll always kind of point out in rounds like that is relying on those individuals to take over a round consistently is quite hard. So I think, and certainly with very little breathing room here, it does again come kind of crashing back down to reality. But again, you talked about the mental game. I think that this is pretty much all mental. You just have to look at this round on round on round, ignore the score at the top, and just sort of believe in the process of the round that you're calling, really. That can be difficult. So we'll see what they can do. At the moment, we're just looking at consolation rounds. We're looking at bit of momentum building going into that second map of Dust 2.
It's nice to see QSC taking a slightly more subdued approach, but that's the problem with that. Immediately get caught out of position a little bit there. Now you're player down in a round that you should be winning, but they do trade it back, so there's a good chance here.
Yeah, Kenya looking good though on that right eye peek. There's someone in that smoke, I'm pretty sure. Fly comes around to finish her off, and now the 4-on-2 ensues. Looking pretty comfortable here. They've got the bomb as well, right? So the final two players not really anywhere near the action. They were trying to make some noise on B, maybe watch for an aggressive push, an aggressive rotation, a flank attempt. But unfortunately, it's backfired because the vanguard of the attack has not really done an awful lot. So looking rough. Push comes through from Fly. Will be traded out, but the information there, right? And they've got such an advantage that it doesn't really matter. 15 for MIBR. It comes quite quickly here into half two. That's kind of to be expected. But QSC, they had a nice fourth. They had a nice first rifle round. Can't keep it going, though.
I think that if maybe we had a little bit more time on this round, on this map, this half, you know, it comes down to that buffer thing. Maybe we could have seen a little bit more out of QSC. I like that they tried to kind of change up their pace a little bit here. And again, we're back into the aggression because they don't have terribly much to work with. They have pushed MIB off, but now they have to contain it.
Yeah, very quick. This is what I thought, that the B rushes, man, they love them. Not going to have a lot of time at it, though, unfortunately. Unless, you know, just rush B. for the rest of the game, that would be quite something. 5-on-5 into the retake. Can get crazy, as we've mentioned. Didn't get to see too many of these in the first half. But here we are in the second. Bomb down. Already looking at about 10 seconds ticked. And MIBR, they're stagnating. They've stalled. They ain't know what's going on. Flash comes over the top. Is here with the trade. And you can see, as soon as that info comes in, that they're pretty much all in the same spot. Or safer positions taken. Spray down's not quite landing. Into just the two of them remaining. The Deagle can't get it done. And that will be that. 16-4. It's rough. It is very rough indeed for QSC. We wanted a bit more competition out of this